you had to define Caracole in 3 words, what would they be?
Feminine, elegant, and fun.
Refined, elegant, and eclectic.
Classic, elegant, and quirky. Yeah.
3 words. Unique. I think playful. And luxurious.
What makes Caracole unique from other furniture brands?
You know, one of the things I love about Caracole is I think we dare you, the designer, to not be boring.
I think it's our perspective. Most companies try and see what's in the marketplace and duplicate it, chasing the trend, and Caracole has its own perspective. It wants to set the trend.
When you mix and match any combination of our products, you really are not ever going to have a boring room.
I think it's because of our manufacturing and the fact that we can do both upholstery and case in the same facility. Also, the culture of the company has always approached product development from a unique standpoint, trying to create stuff that push the boundaries and create furniture that no one else has.
I think that attention to detail that we pour into a piece of furniture, that's what makes us unique and sets us apart.
There are going to be nuances that are kind of aha moments, that when you open the door, you see something totally unexpected. When you open a drawer, something happens that is very unique, that the consumer, we think, will just always love and admire us for giving them kind of that unexpected and special edge.
Why do you think the Caracole brand and collection resonates so well around the globe?
I think it's because we seek inspiration from around the globe.
I think part of our design team is a blended mix of cultures and personalities, and from that they bring a different perspective.
I think it appeals to people who are looking for a unique product. It's not the largest audience. I think it's a select individual. And I think they're all over the world.
People are trying to find what resonates with them and something that reflects their personality. And when we develop product, we try to add an element of uniqueness. And I think that's what attracts people to the Caracole brand.
We think conscientiously about who our customers are, how they live, where they live, and they give us a lot of feedback on the types of styles and designs that appeal to their customers or to their culture.
If you are traveling, if you are experiencing the world, if you are seeing how cultures live in this world, whether it be their cuisine, it could be their materials, their colors that they use, traveling is the quintessential way of gathering inspiration. And that inspiration then translates into a piece of furniture that is loved either around the world. There are pieces that I think are just globally, universally accepted and loved, but then there are also pieces that are unique to certain cultures or parts of the world.
I think that's how our pieces have stood out, is that no matter where you are, there's something about them that you can mix into your life and feel happy about having that piece of Caracole in your home.
your go-to sources for product inspiration?
Honestly, finding inspiration is the most difficult part of being creative, because you could take something literal and spin that into a literal interpretation, or you can digest it and interpret and make it your own.
I like old black and white movies because you're not influenced by the color, but it's the shape and the shadows that catches your eye. So I really am a fan of 1950s, 40s movies, the Hollywood era, where there was an elegance to shapes and forms and forced me into feeling the color palette or the style of it, but it's the way that people lived in that home and the way they used that for staging, and it just gives me all sorts of ideas.
Always I look first with antiques, things, certain furniture movements, architecture. Those always are where the foundation comes from, and it's how you can reconfigure them to make it new and use materials and processes and manufacturing that's current. You can create new things that we weren't able to do before.
Go-to. I don't have go-tos.
It's the excitement that you don't even know where that next piece of inspiration is going to come from.
So it's not necessarily one thing or a go-to source. It's really the bigger picture that I try to pay attention to.
What's the most interesting object that inspired one of your designs?
Water. So as a designer, I'm learning that your roots that you come from have so much more bearing than I used to think 20 or 30 years ago. And I was born and raised in Florida, and water, I have noticed, has become a very prevalent element that I've incorporated into a lot of designs here at Caracole.
That's a good question. I think actually it was an ant tunnel. I saw an ant farm that someone had used as an inspiration for a carving, and that actually, the most bizarre of things, I think, was the fact that it was the voids created by the tunnel that gave the shape and form to one of the pieces I designed. Which is, yes, of course, it's the Glimmer of Hope chair. It morphed from the severity of that ant tunnel to something a little softer, but it really was that negative positive space that inspired me on that piece.
Most interesting object. Okay, this sounds silly, but when I was in college, they had staying at a house that had the basement would get water in it, and there was musical instruments and electronics, and so I can remember I was very early in school, and I did with the available. I think it was some wood, and it wasn't brick, but it was stone, or basically a post and lintel construction, and to elevate all those pieces above the water so that it wouldn't ruin it. And I just remember, I don't know why that just popped in my head. It was the simplicity of it. It's very old. It's the old architecture. It's what Stonehenge is. You know, you have post and lintel. And I don't know why that popped in my head when you said that, but I can see that object. It's very simple and primitive.
What is your creative process?
So a lot of people think that design comes from a single moment of inspiration. And I think some of that is true, but for me, it's much more of an organic process. Oftentimes I infuse many inspirations and cook it down into one idea. So yeah, it's a lot more complicated than it sounds.
A creative process. I wish it was just an on-off switch.
chaos.
I mean, you have to get in a good state of relaxation, I guess, or state of mind. Being inspired, whether through architecture, materials.
We start with an idea. We look for the way handbags are showing up in the world, or fashion on a runway, what somebody saw when they were in a bar or in a restaurant, traveling around the globe when we're doing product design. And we start collecting those ideas and we pin them up on a wall.
At this point, we're sort of collecting ideas and the ingredients for the design.
And as we go through it, we start to think, all right, what's common, what's unique, what's different? How do we create a mood and a feel from that? So as we edit that assortment of ideas or inspirations, we then begin to formulate the new product we're going to introduce the next season. And each designer takes on part of that process.
The design team putting pencil to paper, literally, sometimes markers, and we would start to develop ideas. And, you know, at first it's in our head of what we sort of imagine it to be, and this is a time where we can explore different opportunities. And it could be really any part of the furniture. It could be the overall shape, it could be a piece of hardware that you think it'll make a huge impact, or it could be a finish. To me, this is the most fun out of all the process, is having complete creative freedom.
Then it has to get put into a one-to-one pattern, being what we call as a detail. So you have a true front elevation, a true side elevation, and a true plan view, an elevation from above. Then it goes into the sampling, and there's always a push and pull, adding, subtracting samples. So you go through maybe 1 or 2 samples, and then we go to the finish and the upholstery. Yeah, we'll make corrections to it, hand it off, make sure to follow up on the engineers, and then it's packed and comes all the way overseas and all the way here, and then everyone puts it all up in this showroom, and it looks like it was effortless.
What is the typical timeline to develop a product from start to finish?
It seems like it takes forever, and it's a never-ending process. We're never done creating, but technically, we have 2 markets every year where we present our new ideas to the retailers. So we're constantly working on a 6 to 9 month schedule where we take that idea board, we start creating the drawings, the ideas, putting them together in a room, and then making the samples, traveling around the world to review the process, see the samples in person, come home for a few months, turn around, go back, review them again, and then put them on a boat and send them to our market showroom.
So as far as a timeline on how long it takes to develop a piece of furniture, it varies greatly. Some pieces come together in a month. It varies because maybe we're using an existing finish or a piece of hardware or something. But the unique pieces, sometimes those can take a year or more. So it might be that we start with a wallpaper that we like, and we have to figure out how we're going to translate that to a piece of furniture. So that can be done through a silk screen, it can be hand painted, it can be done with leaf. So there are lots of variations. And we're always working on, I call them experiments, to see if we can actually bring it to fruition. So the experiments are really the interesting things that become the very special kind of signature pieces for Caracole.
It's 6 to 9 months to get from idea to actually a piece sitting in our showroom for someone to see.
Is it acceptable? I don't see it as being any other way. I'm not an interior designer. I stick to the furniture in the building, but my house is filled with individual pieces that I like. And from antique to more modern. It creates interest.
Is it acceptable to mix different furniture styles within a room?
It's preferable to mix styles in a room. I would say absolutely.
I'm not an interior designer by trade, but I think everyone should enjoy the process of finding the object that speaks to you. And if that ends up being an eclectic room, I think it's great. What you surround yourself with should reflect who you are.
Mixing materials, mixing patterns is, I think, essential to create an exciting room, and certainly a Caracole room.
I had a teacher, and I remember I was painting, and I was using one color in the palette, and she told me, to make an example of it, what's the one color that you love? And I said, oh, blue. She said, paint everything blue outside. If everything was blue, the grass, everything, you would soon really hate the color blue. So it's variety is what the mix is what keeps things enjoyable.
Absolutely. I think there are some people who are purists who want all one style, all one look, and that's perfectly natural, it's understandable, and gives a formality to it. But the ability to curate, to mix and match creates a sense of your own personality.
Describe your typical work day.
What is my tip? I don't have a typical work day.
Typical work day. Well, sometimes, depending on when these deadlines are, it varies. Sometimes we'll be more researching, sometimes we'll be drawing, but then as crunch time comes, those days change, and there's a lot of volume of drawings that are being done in a very short time.
So I actually put some thought into this, looking back on the past few years, what I've done. And really, no 2 days are alike. That's a conclusion I've come to.
So there's days of the week, there's nothing but doing spreadsheets and looking at numbers and analyzing the business. And then there's other days where the entire team will sit in a room nonstop, throwing ideas at each other and trying to create a new material or a new color tone or what material to use. And then there are other days where we're traveling.
So, it varies.
Of all the pieces in the Caracole collection, which one is your favorite and why?
I don't think I have a favorite. In every market, it changes.
So my current favorite is the topped off chair. And this is one of those pieces that we knew going into it that it was going to be a risky piece because of the grandness of the scale. And it's just something that we've never tried before. But when we first saw it in the sample shop, I knew immediately that it was right. I got the same butterflies that you would get when you see the perfect pair of shoes and you just have to have it. That's the same feeling I got when I saw that chair in the shop.
That's like asking a parent which is their favorite child and why. It's impossible to say for me.
That is a really hard question because obviously there are many favorites out there and through the years, but I think watercolors would be one of my very favorite pieces because it encompasses all my favorite things in a piece of furniture.
There's too many. I like them. There's so many pieces. This table that's behind us, the fact that it collapses into a circle, into expandable what, 15, 14, 16, 18 people. There's just so many to choose. I can't just pick one.
Was there a particular moment when you realized that you wanted to be a furniture designer?
I think probably while I was in the business as a buyer, I'd come down to market and I'd go through hundreds of thousands of square feet of showrooms and look at everything someone else had done and select from that and buy for my retail store. And after doing that for a couple of years, one of my suppliers said to me, you know, you really have a good eye and you've asked us to do special things for you. Why don't you come work for us and help create? And I think that probably was the moment when I realized that the creating side of it was the funner side. That was the side that excited me about what I was doing for a living, that I was doing something more than just moving product, but that being able to actually give it life was really what I was hoping to accomplish.
Was there a particular moment when you realized that you wanted to be a furniture designer?
Well, I can remember how it happened, but I think I remember going to the library and looking up schools and seeing Kendall College of Art and Design, but I think it was my father right from the start. He was an engineer and worked in the steel industry, and we always fixed everything. We made stuff downstairs, we built stuff, and then I also had I was gifted in fine arts, and so I didn't want to just sculpt and paint as I went through school at a certain point, and I switched, and I didn't want to do industrial design. Furniture design, when I looked up, I thought it was a way to blend both the art and the actual building and manifesting these things. That's what I enjoy. So I couldn't imagine doing anything else, and I think it started from a kid. Didn't know it at the time, but you arrived there eventually.
Was there a particular moment when you realized that you wanted to be a furniture designer?
I really consider myself more of a designer. And I think that's important because I look at designing furniture in a different way than a furniture designer. Being an interior designer, you think of the whole room. You don't think of a piece necessarily. So I think about how a piece of furniture will interact with other pieces, and sometimes think of it as the whole concept. So I think that's a little different. As far as the first time I knew I wanted to be a designer, my mother would say it was when I was 3 or 4, and she would take me to the beach every day because there wasn't a lot going on in Florida back in those days. So we would go to the beach, and she actually taught me all my color names from coquina shells. And we progressed from naming coquina shell colors to making sandcastles. And that is where, in essence, we started creating like floor plans for a house, which is kind of fun. And then we moved to the next chapter and started decorating the sandcastles with shells. So she told me, I think when I was in college, about that she just thought it was so fascinating as a child that all of those elements at the beach she thought kind of shaped me to be a designer. So when I realized that I wanted to be a designer, I think I was maybe in the 5th grade, and I started moving furniture in our house. And my mother was like, what is going on here? Why are we moving the cocktail and all of this? Why are we angling the sofa? Why are we doing all this? And I was like, well, because it's fun and it's different, and this room's boring and we should change it up. So I think in the 5th grade, when I started moving furniture, is probably when I realized I had a career as a designer.
I mean, it's fun stuff to work on. I would hate to work on a different line.
Why?
I think we're just allowed to push the boundaries. I enjoy my job. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.